Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Good morning and welcome to Financial Issues. Today's Thursday, July 18th of 2024, and we're so glad that you found us today. We don't believe that it's an accident that you're here, so we hope that you'll keep listening and find out how you can defund darkness with a biblically responsible investment strategy and fund the light. Be encouraged to be a joyful and generous giver. You can find out more about our ministry at financialissues.org. It's all about stewardship. So why not get started with the stewardship verse of the day from Proverbs 24:3. By wisdom, a house is built, and by understanding, it is established. Seth, do you want to elaborate?
I would love to, Shana. This actually is a verse that hits close to home for me, pun intended, because this is the verse that hangs up in my living room wall, and it's a verse about a home. I did not build my home, but this verse is reminding me that it is by wisdom a house is built every day when I look at it in my living room. So, it's saying that a house, meaning a legacy, is cultivated and grown and sustained through wisdom. And I think seeking the Lord, following his commands, loving his word, all things that are wrapped around Christian wisdom, these things really make a legacy, Shana. So when we do this, our homes become places of life and joy and peace where Christ is Lord and where Christ is glorified, and those tend to be the best homes. And so, oftentimes the scripture, what it does is it uses this imagery of homes to describe our lives and our legacies, and kind of leads to today's teachable moment of hard assets. And I know that homes can be one of those prime hard assets there. But, Shana, to begin with, as we're talking about hard assets as an investment, our founder, Dan Celia, used to speak very highly of hard assets. First of all, before we get into actually why he would, what are we talking about when we say a hard asset?
Yeah. So a hard asset is something tangible. Think buildings, vehicles, trucks, cars, machinery, equipment, if you're a business, office furniture, machinery, even inventory can be a hard asset, inventory that you can sell. And what Dan used to talk about so much when he would talk about hard assets, most of the time was property. Investment property and tillable land was one of his favorites.
Yeah, good. And what is your opinion, Shana, of hard assets as a possible resource for some investment income?
Well, I think they can be really great. I mean, we own 2 pieces of rental property ourselves, and, it's been a really, really good investment. Investment properties tend to provide a larger stream of income if you can do it right than most, equity investments. You could probably generate higher income from a real estate portfolio than you could with a investment portfolio if that's your main goal, is just to generate that income.
Yeah. And let's stick with real estate and rental property for just a moment, because I think that is one of the more common ones we think of when we think of hard assets. Is what wisdom and insight would you give to folks who might be interested in becoming landlords? They can see some of the potential upsides, like you said, and they're thinking this might be a good way to make some extra money.
Well, I love our stewardship verse today, but I'm kind of stuck on counting the costs.
That's right. Been the theme of our week so far.
We did. We did that one a few days ago, and it's just, it's a stewardship principle that keeps coming up in every business discussion that we have. So, you have to count the cost. You have to look at, unless you have just a lump sum of money where you can go out and buy a property, you're probably going to have to borrow money to do that. So you want to look at what interest rates are. What is going to be your cost to finance that piece of property? Will you have enough capital to carry that property and pay for the maintenance costs, the taxes, the insurance, the note, so on and so forth, if you don't have a renter in there providing income, or even worse, if you do have a renter in there and they're not paying. So you have to make sure that you have provision, that you have resources to cover all of that and to keep your property, because the last thing that you want to do is invest a lot of money in acquiring property and paying on it for years and then lose it because you're not able to either pay the taxes or, pay for the note. You have to also consider insurance. Property insurance, especially where I live on the coast, has gone up. Flood insurance has become ridiculous. Every year, this year, whenever we we evaluate. I think we're coming up on the end of a lease for a renter, and we're going to have to take a hard look at what do we want to do now? Do we our insurance has gone up, our taxes have gone up, and things just keep escalating. So you have to look at the real estate market in your area. What are the odds that property will appreciate? Is it, within real estate, it's location that is the most important. And so you have to look at the area that you're in. Is it an area that is thriving and growing, or is it in an area that's in decline? So you have to really count the cost. You have to consider all those things.
Yeah, good stuff, Shana. Leads to a question we got from a listener, not a partner. This is Sheila, I believe. And she's saying, I was wondering, since the HOA I'm in is selling of shares, what can I sell out of my unit to get a like-for-like exchange for taxes? I want to avoid a large capital gain and be taxed so much. What insight would you have for Sheila here, Shana?
Well, I'm not sure that I understand the question as it was written, but what I think she's kind of touching on is what's called a 1031 exchange. And that's where if you have a piece of investment property, and that would be the first key there. If this is your home, you may not have to worry about it at all, because if you're selling your primary residence, you get a you don't have to pay capital gains tax on the first $250,000 of gains as long as you've lived there as your primary residence for 2 years. $500,000 is what you get to kind of free. You don't have to pay capital gains if you're married filing jointly, or if you're married. So if it's your primary home, you might not have to worry about it. I don't know how much gain she's got in the property, but if it is an investment property and you're talking about doing a 1031 exchange, that is where you can exchange one kind of investment property for another of like kind. So there's several things that you have to make sure to get right if you're going to try to use that strategy. So I would consult either a tax professional or a lawyer. It has to be a like kind of property. You have to identify it ahead of time. The funds have to be held in escrow. You have a certain time frame that you have to get it done in. So it is a strategy that's out there, but I don't even know that I would suggest that that's a good thing, because it doesn't allow you to avoid taxes. All it does is it allows you to postpone those taxes. So basically, you're just transferring the capital gain that you have in one property to the next property, and you can continue doing that as long as you follow the strategy and do everything right that you're supposed to do. But eventually, at some point, you have to ask yourself, am I going to sell out of these properties altogether? If that's the case, you've just grown your tax liability, because assuming that the properties appreciate over time. So you have a bigger capital gain down the road, and you may possibly have a bigger capital gains tax rate down the road, because there's a lot of uncertainty about taxes in the future. And you hear me say all the time, I believe taxes are going to be higher in the future than what they are now. And that's because we have a spending problem in this country. We have a growing deficit. We have a enormous amount of debt. And, one of the only ways to keep that house of cards from falling is to keep borrowing, is to keep borrowing money, and being able to service the debt on that money is crucial. So, the government's revenue is taxes. So that's why I think taxes are going to be higher in the future. So you have to, really think about your exit strategy. Don't get caught up in what can I do to save a few bucks on my taxes today. Consider the whole picture.
Yeah, it's good stuff, Shana. Might only have time for one of these questions here before the break, but what's the upside, the potential upside at least, to owning some rental property? Obviously the rental income, but what would be some other things?
Right. So, but you have to make sure that you still have income after you've paid the debt service on it, paid the taxes and the insurance. You can also have capital appreciation. Same thing that this listener was asking about. The value of their property has grown. You also have to consider that the value that you have in the property is sort of illiquid. So you actually have to sell that property and be able to access the capital, or you would have to look at borrowing against that property and taking out a loan on it.
Yeah, it's good stuff, Shana. It's good to think, like you said, the theme of this week has been counting the cost. And boy, it is really true here when we're talking about the potential of owning a rental property is you have to be able to plan for the worst,
Yeah.
And
I think we've got a little more to say on this, but we're running out of time right now. So, folks, we do have to take a break, but we hope that you'll stay tuned and stick around. We'll finish up this conversation, and then we'll talk about interest rates, the Fed, all that fun stuff. So don't go anywhere. We're going to be back with more financial issues right after this break.
On the day I found I was pregnant, I was full of emotions and I just was so overwhelmed, and I don't know if I'm ready for this huge life-altering, changing commitment. I had individuals around me not wanting me to have this child. And somehow, and I was driving and I saw the Women's Help Center sign and I immediately turned in. That just took relief off of me. And I was like, you know what? It's gonna be okay. They gave me the confidence and the support that I needed to be able to go out and face the world. First time I held Finnegan, I just lit up with joy. I was so excited. This little boy that I had in my life, he is loving and generous. Watching him just grow and flourish into this incredible human being has just been so rewarding and so uplifting. Looking back, I don't know what I would do without him because I needed him more than I think he needed me.
There are moments in life that define us. Choices determine the courses we take. Choices that create life, or those that save a life. And some make life worthwhile. There are decisions to stay or to go, to remain the same or to grow. Sometimes we pray and make peace. Other times we take a stand for what we believe. In celebration, mourning, triumph, and defeat, we are invested in every decision we seek. Despite differences, we have one thing in common, the desire to do all for the glory of God. Keep your wallet aligned with your heart and your investments in harmony with your faith. Timothy Plan, biblically responsible mutual funds, ETFs, and retirement plans. Before investing, carefully consider a fund's investment objective, risks, charges, and expenses contained in the prospectus available at timothyplan.com. Read carefully before investing.
Folks, we're considering hard assets today in our conversation to open the show. And, Shana, one of the follow-ups that we can consider with this is, as we think about these assets, how should we view them in our asset allocation specifically? So the kind of all of our investments, not just the hard assets, but the liquid ones as well, equities, how should we view them?
Well, I think we should have a different portfolio. So, you have your investment portfolio, which is going to be made up of your liquid assets, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, whatever you have over there. And then your real estate portfolio really is kind of separate.
Yeah, and that's helpful there, Shana, for sure. Now, when we think about the portfolio tracker for us here at the ministry and for our partners, is there a place that we can track hard assets on the tracker, or is this something we should just keep separate from our equity investments?
Yeah, so same principle there. Keep it separate. If you put it in your portfolio tracker, it's really going to mess up your investment portfolio because odds are you're going to be way overweighted in your real estate if that's where you code it to, but then you're not going to be able to do anything about it because you're not going to be able to rebalance or reallocate unless you sell that property. So it's better just to kind of keep it separate. And then, one other kind of final thought on that, if you check all the boxes about counting the cost and, being a landlord, rental property can be very good to own, but you have to also explore that other piece of it is being a landlord. You have people to deal with. You have tenants to deal with. You have to take applications. You have to be able to check, run background checks and check their credit. You have to make sure that they're paying you in a timely way. Then if they don't pay you, you have to know what your rights are. You have to, think ahead and think about down the road. You also have to think about when you have a renter that moves out. Well, we've had good renters and we've had bad renters. Every single time that somebody moves out, we've got to do something to the properties, and sometimes it's a lot more than others. And to be quite frank with you, I probably wouldn't even own rental property if my husband wasn't a contractor. So, we've got, I don't want to get a phone call in the middle of the night about somebody's toilet being stopped up or, get a call over the weekend that, there's a water leak or, something like that, or their air conditioner's not working or, those kind of things. So if you don't have the resources, I would probably get taken advantage of every time I tried to call somebody out to fix those things. And so like I said, if it weren't for my husband being a contractor or being very handy with these kind of things and having contacts, I probably wouldn't even own rental property myself.
It's well said, Shana. It reminds me of being an adult and owning a home. When stuff breaks, you either have to fix it or pay someone to fix it, and it's kind of a tough hand to be dealt. But it's true.
YouTube it.
That's right, or YouTube it. There you go, Shana. What about cross-pollinating our investments? So what I mean by this, for example, say you take the earnings from the equity investments and you put them into a rental property, or vice versa. You sell out of a rental property, put those sale funds into the equity market. Is there wisdom to this, or is that a foolish strategy?
No, sure. I mean, you could do that. Now, from a practical standpoint, you'd have to have a really large investment portfolio to come up with enough capital and dividends to actually purchase and maintain rental properties. But, if that's you, then, hey, that's a good way to add diversification to your assets.
Yeah, that's good. And then the last question here, how should we approach hard assets with our strategy in terms of the time in the market? Is it much the same as the equity markets, that if we get in, we're expecting to be in this for the long haul?
I would say it's even more so.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't really cost a lot, and it doesn't take a lot of effort to actually purchase stocks or mutual funds. You can usually do it pretty quickly online. You can get your transaction done. You can typically get it done in a very cost-efficient manner. There's a lot of discount brokerage platforms where you get free trades or very, very low commissions to establish your positions. But with real estate, if you're establishing a position in real estate, you've got to count all the costs. There it is again. You're going to have closing costs. You're going to have, application costs, mortgage costs. You're going to have those repairs that I talked about. You'll have an even longer break-even time than maybe owning some more liquid assets like stocks and bonds. So you're going to have to, give yourself time to recoup all of those costs and actually become profitable. So yes, definitely long-term strategy.
Yeah. Very good. Very good.
Well, speaking of interest rates, and that's the talk of the town, I guess, for the last several years. The markets have hinged on every word that the Fed has said, and even the things that they've implied or read between the lines that the Fed hasn't actually said. And we got more Fed speak this week. We only have right at 2 weeks until we get the next Fed rate decision. And interestingly enough to me, there's actually a growing probability, it's very small, but a growing probability that we'll actually see a rate cut as early as the end of this month. So in July, if you add, I'm looking at the CME group Fed tracker where it shows the probabilities of a Fed rate cut. If you add 93% say that rates are going to stay the same in July, right at 7% say that they're going to cut rates. So, there's you add those two together, you have 100% chance that rates are not going higher. There's still way more in the camp that think that they're going to do nothing at the July meeting. I think it might be prudent, based on, I think there's a good case that can be made that the Fed should probably start with a small rate cut in July. They probably won't. I'll probably be in the minority there. But, you have Fed Chair Powell spoke on Monday to the Economic Club of Washington, D.C. And at the beginning of the statement, he said that he wasn't going to indicate any timing of rates, but he referenced the idea that the central bank policy works with long and variable lags. And you hear that rhetoric a lot whenever you listen to the Fed. So what they're acknowledging is that they have some very blunt tools. With rate cuts, they only have really two tools that they can use. Rate cuts and quantitative tightening are easing. And with rate cuts, it takes a while for those things, for those rate cuts to work its way through the system. So with that being said, we're starting to see GDP slow. We're seeing unemployment rise. So the indication here is that the rate cuts have worked to slow down the economy, and theoretically that's going to put inflation in check. The odds of them cutting, the talk is that we weren't going to see rate cuts now until the end of the year, as inflation had kind of started to peak at the beginning of the year. I said, and I still maintain, that we're going to see that first rate cut well before the election. So either maybe they'll do it this month. I doubt it. But I think there's a very high probability that we're going to see that rate cut in September, because there is an election. And the way that the pendulum is swinging right now, with Trump predicted to win, I'm sure Jay Powell is even more and more concerned about his job, even though he doesn't get into those political matters. Also this week, Austin Goolsbee spoke, and he's the Chicago Fed president. He said, quote, "The reason to be tightening in real terms would be if you thought the economy was overheated." He said, "This is not what an overheating economy looks like, and that tightening should be done voluntarily and not by happenstance." So, he's one of the more, dovish members of the Fed, advocating for those cuts sooner rather than later. So he is acknowledging those cracks in the economy and indicating that it might not be a bad idea to go ahead and get some cuts in there. So I think there are some strong arguments for a small rate cut in July, so that they don't have to overreact, or what Goolsbee was saying, that they needed these cuts needed to happen intentionally and not by happenstance, or really what he's saying is being forced to have to do them, and to do them in a big way, and potentially causing an overreaction. But bottom line is, Congress is still going to have to figure out, the Fed is still going to have to figure out what to do with all the money that Congress is spending. So the Fed is apolitical. Jay Powell often says that it's the job of Congress to authorize and spend money, the spending of money, but it's the Fed's decision as to whether or not they'll buy it or not. And the Fed won't get involved in telling Congress that it's a big mistake to spend money that you don't have. Well, Powell won't say it, but I will. It's a big mistake for Congress to continue spending the money that they don't have.
Yeah. Well said there, Shana. You want to get to one of these questions here before we finish up this segment? Let's do it. Let's get to Joe. This was from earlier this week on the website, Joe from Virginia, saying, what are the concerns in navigating the bid/ask spread while dollar cost averaging the purchases of ETFs?
So I'm not sure which ETFs he's looking at buying, but if you're looking at any that are on our list, there probably shouldn't be a big issue with the bid and the ask spread. So just to be clear, the bid and the ask spread is the difference between what you would pay for shares of an ETF if you're buying it versus what you would get if you're selling it. So there is a little bit of a spread there, and the difference is what the market makers is how the market makers make their money with the trades that happen. So the last time I looked, and there's usually really only about a 1 cent spread in the share price, and I think that's pretty pretty minimal. So I don't really think, because you're going to own this for, you're looking at owning this for a long term, I don't think a 1 cent difference in the share price is going to make a difference 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road.
Good stuff,
But
Shana.
Good question.
Yeah, it's good. Probably last one for today. We'll see. Amar is asking about some financial stocks, F36 and F37. Are they growth or income stocks? The website doesn't mention that. And is it okay to own both? He's 51 years old.
Yeah, so it is okay to own both. The F36, the one that you mentioned there, is a growth in income stock. So you'll see that it and I hope I have the numbers right. You'll see that it has it pays a dividend there. And then the other one, the F37, is a growth stock. No dividend, definitely is a growth stock. So okay to own both.
Awesome.
All right. Well, folks, if you are listening to the short version of the program on an outlet that carries that short version, then we wish you a farewell for today. We hope that you will come back tomorrow, or that you'll find out how to get the whole show on podcast, Apple or Spotify, or by going to financialissues.org, or better yet, getting our phone app where you can see all of the past and current episodes of Financial Issues. For the rest of you, stick around. We're going to be right back after this break. Hi, this is Shana Bird, the host of Financial Issues. The Financial Issues family is so blessed to have saved tens of thousands of babies, all thanks to the generous support of you, our listeners and viewers. For $140, you can sponsor 5 ultrasounds. Please go to preborn.org, that's preborn.org, or financialissues.org, and click on the Preborn logo. Save a baby, save a life.
Here at FISM News, our mission is to provide you with news from a source you can trust.
The news is a constant reminder that this world is not our home. It is marred by sin, resulting in wars, brokenness, and divisiveness.
Jesus promised that he will return soon to judge sin and make all things new.
Until then, we place our hope in him.
This is the good news, the most important truth we feel compelled to share.
Remember the good old days when companies stuck to just selling their products rather than using their profits to push an agenda? When you invest in a company, you become an owner of that company. And more businesses are now using your money to fund woke projects. We're called to be good stewards of all we have, and that includes ensuring your investments align with your biblical values. Thankfully, that's where Financial Issues can help. For over 25 years, Financial Issues has stood as a leader of biblically responsible investing, encouraging the body of Christ to keep funds out of companies that dishonor God. We provide Christian investors with the tools they need to build fiscally and biblically responsible portfolios. We're at the forefront of the fight, helping you not only with your finances, but advocating for truth and godly wisdom.
For more information, go to financialissues.org. That's financialissues.org.
Initially, when we became members, I thought, what if this doesn't work? I mean, we're going to give up this whole concept of insurance, and we're going to trust God and his people. And I was like, yeah, well, of course. I'm going to trust an insurance company to come through for me, or I'm going to trust the church to come through for me. And that's a no-brainer. I love getting the monthly share that I give to each month that has the name of a real person and their real medical concerns and a prayer request, for them. If I have a need, I know I can go get care. I can see the providers I want to see. I don't have to worry if they're in my network. And if we need medical care, Samaritan is there.
A community of Christians paying one another's medical bills. For more information, go to financialissues.org and click the Samaritan Ministries banner.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shana are hers alone and are for informational purposes only and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Welcome back to Financial Issues, everybody. Good to be here with you today. Thursday, July 18th. I'm Seth Udinsky. Happy to have you on the program. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Shana, the last couple segments there. The market's just open. We'll get to those in a little bit, folks. I want to remind you the conference call that Shana did yesterday is posted on the partner side of the website. If you missed that conference call, go back and listen to it after the show today. Shana shared some really good stuff there on what's been going on in the world, and there is a lot going on, as you all know. But before we talk about all that, I have a very special treat for you all. Dear friend of the ministry, friend of mine, a longtime friend of the ministry, and a warrior in the space of biblically responsible investing. The founder and president of Timothy Plan, Art Alley, is on with me once again here. Art, it's a pleasure to have you on, my friend. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, could you repeat all that? I want to turn my recorder on.
Absolutely. The singular. The singular.
But it's a delight to be with you, man.
Likewise, brother. Hey, thank you so much for joining. And, you know, there's been a lot of celebration lately in the BRI space, and we're going to get to all that, Art. But before we do, first of all, I would love to just hear your thoughts on the events of this past weekend, the attempt on former President Trump's life, and kind of just to start, what this means for our country, seeing something like this.
Yeah. I think only two words come to my mind, but God.
Yeah. Amen.
I mean, I think we all recognize, including Donald Trump, that he was divinely protected at that moment in time. It could have been a whole lot different right now.
Yeah.
But I think the whole tenor, especially in the Republican convention, has changed. And, you know, we're going to be kinder, gentler, more understanding, and more thankful for where we are. And I think there really is hope that this country, the greatest country in the history of the world, you know, that we will regain and step up and demand we regain our liberty and our freedom from an oppressive government that's trying to control every single thing we do and every single dollar we have, you know, from central bank digital currency to all the rest. But it is important how you invest money, and I guess that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, absolutely, and it certainly is. You know, as you were talking there, Art, just got me thinking of the history of our country has been one where we have taken a stand against tyrannical leadership. That's, in fact, how this country was born. And so hopefully we see a new generation raising up of people who are willing to fight for what is right, even against a tyrannical government.
Yeah, you know, there's only one group of founding fathers in a nation.
Yeah.
What we need today is defending fathers. Every single person needs to step up, be heard, and do something to try to stop this pell-mell rush into oblivion called socialism and communism. And all that means is there a small group that's going to control every single thing you do. And I don't think any of us want that. I don't care what stripe we are. We've got freedom. We want to keep our freedom, even though, you know, we've got a couple of generations that have been indoctrinated into the wonders of socialism. It doesn't work. It hasn't worked. It can't work. It will never work. The only thing that does work is God's way, and it only works every time.
Amen. It's well said there, brother. You know, speaking of finances, and obviously that's the main way that we talk about how we try to use our influence well is with our money. Getting back to, Trump's divine protection on Saturday, what do you think it could potentially mean for the economy and for the markets? It seemed to me like the markets were pretty excited about certainly the possibility and perhaps even the probability of a Trump re-election in 2024. How would you expect that the markets might react as Trump continues to gain steam?
Well, you know, the elections haven't happened yet. And, you know, there's been widespread fraud in the history of elections.
Yeah.
But I don't think they can put enough fraud together to defeat Trump this time. But it's not just Trump. We need an entire Congress of people that think logically, if not biblically, hopefully biblically.
Yeah.
And start turning around all this evil that is so deeply embedded in every aspect of our government. It has to be rooted out. But more than anything, we can point to Washington's not going to solve our problems. They're going to be a real benefit, but our problems are spiritual. God's people are not doing what he has instructed us to do. We've gotten way too comfortable. And on the other side of the ledger, we just watched a little video clip by Maria Bartiromo from Fox News, Fox Nation, on China. Timothy, we're known for not investing in companies that are involved in abortion or pornography or promoting the LGBTQ agenda, anti-family entertainment, and all the rest. But we won't invest in any company based in China.
Amen.
And Wall Street is heavily invested in China, and they are enabling China to destroy America, which is their ultimate purpose. It makes no sense whatsoever. And, these people, they don't care. China does not release any accounting or auditing or anything on any of these companies. You don't even know what you're buying.
Yeah.
So for the listening audience, if you own other shares of other mutual funds of other companies, I'm going to guarantee you own companies that are based in China. And it's time we step up and get out of that. It's the best stewardship thing we can do at this point in time.
Absolutely. Art, if the enemy at home is this radical movement of anti-godliness and of pro-abortion and of LGBTQ nonsense, the enemy abroad absolutely is China, and they are certainly growing stronger as we continue to seem to be growing weaker. I've noticed some things, Art, with just some of the clips that come out of China, and there's not much, obviously, because they're pretty tightly locked down in terms of that stuff, but you see the way that the kids are raised there. They're not being taught the DEI stuff. They're not being taught the LGBTQ stuff. They're being taught actual strength and reading and writing and arithmetic. And I think that's purposeful. And I think we need to be very aware of the fact that our country's moving in one direction and they're moving in the other. And we really need to be ready. And it's so good to hear what you said about what Timothy Plant is doing, not investing in our mortal enemy. That's really what it is.
Yeah. We thought for a little short period of time, well, our money managers can invest in privately owned companies in China.
Yeah.
But it didn't take us long to figure out, even though they may be privately owned, they are totally controlled by the communist government. We will not own anything in China. Why would you want to own shares of country companies that are trying to destroy you?
Yeah.
It makes no sense whatsoever other than chasing the almighty dollar. That's all that matters to these people.
Yeah.
And they're going to invest themselves right into oblivion.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Folks, that's why the Timothy ETFs, one of the reasons why they're so good is not only are they, pro-life and pro-family and pro-God, but they're pro-our country as well. I think it's really good. Kind of moving to, a little bit of the celebration that we have been talking about. We have been seeing in the biblically responsible movement a couple victories recently, and I know our two ministries are on the front lines of these fights here. What do you make of the reversal of course that we saw both from Tractor Supply and most recently in the last couple of days, John Deere?
Well, there's one thing I know about politicians. The only thing I really know, other than most of them are corrupted, is they can count.
Yeah.
They can count. Corporations can count.
Yeah.
Sometimes they have a little trouble doing that. It took Target, and they still haven't counted properly.
Yeah, right.
I mean, they've offended. You don't offend the moms of America and expect to stay in business.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Good luck.
I kind of wish I drank Bud Light so I could stop drinking it, but I don't. But I want to join that boycott.
Yeah.
They can count, and companies that are starting to offend. Yeah, we're still the majority. We've been too silent for too long, and we can no longer be silent. You stand up, like Ronald Reagan said, we're only one generation away from losing all of our liberty.
Yeah.
It has to be fought for. I wish it didn't. and you can fight for it. You don't need guns and ammunition and that. You can fight for it, especially with your dollars, because it's always about the money. And when the money starts impacting people, they start paying attention.
Absolutely. It's good stuff, Art. Obviously, as always happens, we're running out of time here. But just to kind of close up here, we're gearing up for Timothy's 30th anniversary celebration coming up this year. What a tremendous testament of God's grace. How is Timothy Plan continuing to lead the fight as you guys now enter your 4th decade of leading this fight of biblically responsible investing?
Well, great question. And we probably don't have time to get into all of it. But, when we launched this, they said it couldn't be done, but here we are 30 years later. They said you couldn't get competitive returns, but here we are getting competitive returns. And it's time for the succession to take place. And the succession here is we've got people taking over, and they are very equipped. But I guess we're out of time.
That's awesome. Unfortunately, we'll have to leave it at a cliffhanger there, Art, until our next time. Brother, I appreciate you so much. It is always a joy to have you on the program. I look forward to the next time that we get to do it. Folks, check out timothyplan.com. Timothy Plan's leading the fight. You got to invest with him. timothyplan.com. We'll be right back after this break. Stick with us.
Samuel Case, news anchor with FISM News, sits down to read real comments from real viewers.
All righty, another big man here. Let's see. Ooh, upside down. Jen Harris, 52. She says, whoa, this is how I remember the news being when I was younger. Well, Jen, are you actually 52 years old? That's not too old. You don't have to say when I was younger. You're young now. Anyway, she says, it was just information back then, read by a person who read well and said things in a way that was pleasant to the ear, but no bearing on the information. Well, Jen, I got to say, that's awesome that you think I read well and that I'm pleasing to the ear. Actually, I got to ask, is this a legit comment or you guys pulling one over? It's real? Okay, well, Jen, you have a good taste in news anchors here. And it's also awesome to hear that you don't think we're overbearing with our opinions and that we're just getting right at the point and that you're actually getting legit news from us here at FISM News. That's awesome.
Navigating through investment options can be challenging, especially when you're determined to uphold your God-given values. Every dollar you invest is a vote for the world that you want to live in. Let your values guide your investment decisions and help to shape the culture in which we live. Become a beacon of light and pave the way with biblically responsible investing. Timothy Plan, where faith and finance collide. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Folks, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Art Alley. He's a dear friend of mine and obviously a dear friend of our ministry. We love Art, we love Timothy Plan, and just the work that they are doing to lead the fight in biblically responsible investing. Of course, we stand side by side with them. I really feel like Financial Issues and Timothy Plan are really kind of the co-leaders of this movement and just doing a great job. So we're so grateful for Timothy Plan. Nathan had a great comment here in the chat. Said, I'm 49. Mr. Art still sounds like he would be the grandpa everybody wants. Yeah, it's true, man. Happy, comical, God-loving. Be fun to sit on the back porch with, have a good cup of coffee while gaining life wisdom from him. Nathan, I feel that way every time I talk to Art on the air, that I always learn something new. And very much, I mean, if you want to picture, for those of you who are some of our new audience members and you never got to listen to Dan Celia live, just listen to Art, because Art and Dan, very, very similar. Old school guys, hilarious, sarcastic, and fun to talk to, and just bursting at the seams of godly wisdom. So very cool. You can kind of see why our ministries are so tightly connected by understanding the friendship that those two men had while Dan was still with us. And so just a beautiful thing to get to be a part of. And I've been the recipient recipient of that, being able to get to know Art over these last couple of years as well. So it's really cool. We're also seeing, let's see here, we've got a question. Where was this question? William was asking where the link for Tractor Supply is located. William, go to financialissues.org and scroll down just a little bit there, and you'll see the it's our like standard take action, sign the petition page. Scroll down a little bit. It's on the left-hand side of the website, and I will help you out here and just pop it into the chat for you so that way you have it. But that's where our link for Tractor Supply is. We're also going to be getting something up soon for John Deere, a very similar thing to celebrate what they're doing as well. So stay tuned for that, folks. That'll be coming there. But I hope that's helpful for you there, William. I know we got I think it was a partner question that maybe just came in. But William, I think this partner question was actually from you. So where do you find that Tractor Supply link? It's right there. I dropped it in there for you, buddy. So I hope that's helpful for you. Markets, folks. Let's take a look here at what they did yesterday and then what they are doing right now. So a couple big days we had earlier this week. Yesterday, the Dow Jones continued its surge a little more moderately from Tuesday, but then it went up pretty good yesterday. Let's see how we finished here, because I actually need to refresh my screen. We'll just take a look at what we're looking at right now, actually. Everything moderately positive. So the Dow's up a little bit, S&P's up about a fifth, NASDAQ's up about a quarter. And I failed to mention this, that the NASDAQ did have a tough day yesterday. Wasn't because of anything particularly negative. There's been a lot of sell-offs in the tech sector lately. And so the NASDAQ, obviously tech-heavy, has been the recipient of that, as we've seen massive gains in the tech sector. If you want more info on that, by the way, folks, check out Shana's commentary from Monday. This is not the partner conference call. She talks about it a little bit there in the conference call, but her commentary from Monday is really good. It has some insight on that. So go ahead and check that out if you're looking for it. Also, I wanted to remind you, we have Bible study tomorrow. Hope you'll join us 6:30 Eastern time. The phone number and access code are available for you on financialissues.org if you scroll down and click join our Bible study. But in case you want it, I'll just give it to you on air right now. It's 717-908-1834. 717-908-1834. And the access code is 120544. 120544. So if you're interested in joining Bible study, that is the way to join. We've got Craig Halgard with our Ag Report today, folks, and then we'll get to some more financial issues right after that as we close our program. Here's Craig Halgard with today's Ag Report.
This is Craig Halgard with your Financial Issues Ag Update for July 18th. Well, the corn market closed higher yesterday with some help from the wheat market. Cooler temperatures are working their way into the Midwest in the middle of this week and look to be just what the doctor ordered for pollinating corn along the I-70 and I-80 corridors. Overnight lows in Des Moines, Iowa, and the rest of this week are not forecasted to be above 65 degrees, after which precipitation works its way into the western corn belt next week. So it should be real good conditions for pollination. December corn closed 3 cents higher yesterday at $4.11 3/4 per bushel. The soybean market experienced a mostly sideways trading session before settling higher in the August contract and lower in the November contract. Now, some private analysts out of South America are increasing their production ideas for Brazil, with a group yesterday estimating the Brazilian soybean crop at 152.5 million metric tons. November beans settled 2 1/4 cents lower yesterday at $10.41 per bushel. Wheat closed higher after 3 consecutive lower sessions. Now, the rally was driven by a forecast for the spring wheat growing area that's causing some concern. Temperatures in the Dakotas appear to be above average in both the 6 to 10 and 8 to 14 day time frames. As a result, Minneapolis September wheat led the rally higher, closing up 16 cents at $5.91 3/4. Kansas City was 10 3/4 cents stronger, closing at $5.61. And Chicago was 8.5 cents better, ending the day at $5.39 1/4. Cotton futures had a bit of a corrective bounce. We ended up with December futures closing 70 points higher at 72.07. And livestock futures showed us a little bit of strength. October live cattle were $1.05 higher, $185.57 per hundredweight. September feeder cattle rose by 2.5 cents to settle at $259.55 per hundred. And October lean hog futures $1.47.5 higher, $73.67.5 per hundredweight. Class 3 milk futures continued to chop sideways. At the closing bell, August futures had advanced by 3 points to settle at 19.77. This has been Craig Halgard with your Financial Issues Ag Update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
Hope you guys enjoyed that. Hey, make sure to keep praying for Craig as well. He has a follow-up surgery, I believe, scheduled for early next week. I'm going to follow up with him on that. But he appreciates the prayers of the Financial Issues family so much with his health stuff that he's been going through. So pray for him here. Okay, so we got a couple questions here, actually. Grant, why don't you go ahead and read Maritza's question for us?
Yeah, so Maritza asks, some entities or persons shorted Truth Social 2 weeks ago on the NASDAQ. This person or persons could be the one who conspired to the shooting of President Trump. Who is betting on Trump being dead?
Interesting question, Maritza. I know Claude had a similar one asking about the alleged massive short sale just before Saturday. Claude, I assume you're talking about DJT stock right there. Keep in mind, folks, this is not a recommendation of DJT stock. It is not on our buy list, so we're not recommending that you would buy it. But I think it is interesting in light of everything that has been happening. And I'll answer for both of you guys there. You know, I think so before we jump to the conclusion that someone had, you know, kind of interfered with the financial side because they knew about a potential assassination attempt, which absolutely could be true, by the way, absolutely could be true. I basically have no trust for our federal government, for our Secret Service, obviously, for any of these things here. But I also think there's an aspect of this that we might not be thinking about necessarily, and that is simply this. So it was probably about, I'm going to say, probably a year ago or so where I really started to think I would not be surprised if multiple assassination attempts were made on President Trump if he decides to run again and if he gains steam and if he's the Republican nominee, because the other side hates him so much. Think about what they've been doing to this guy. They've been trying to jail him. They've been trying to lock him up for like 700 years on basically bogus charges. They've been trying to essentially vilify him, and people who follow him, their label for people like that is MAGA Republicans. At its worst, they call him Hitlerian and different things like that and compare him to Hitler. All that does is paint a target on him literally. In fact, President Biden actually used words similar to that just before the shooting, which he then had to basically say, yeah, that probably wasn't the best thing to say. All of that led me to believe, you know what? There's a good chance that there's going to be an attempt on this guy's life before early November. Absolutely. So if anything, I would wonder if that short sale was simply because of that, because people know, you know what, there's an entire contingent in this country that despises this guy and wants to take him out. Wouldn't be surprised. Would not be a surprise at all. That's part of why, you know, I was personally, it was shocking news to hear about what happened on Saturday, but overall it wasn't surprising. It wasn't surprising because of how much people hate this guy. And so I think that could potentially be part of it, Claude and Maritza. I don't know for sure. But whether or not there was this kind of deep state conspiracy or whether it was simply just a lot of people are thinking like us and think, yeah, you know what? This guy has ticked off a whole lot of people. I mean, of course, something like this would happen. So just, and once again, just speaking simply politically, strictly politically, I'm obviously not condoning anything like this at all, and also not predicting something that could necessarily happen again, but I'm saying, you know what, I wouldn't be surprised. So I hope that could answer that for you guys there. It's very, very interesting. Here's some more interesting news concerning Trump. He said he would allow Fed Chair Jerome Powell to finish his term if reelected. That is very interesting. Trump said, quote, "I'd let him serve it out, especially if I thought he was doing the right thing." Now, Powell's term as chairman of the Federal Reserve ends in 2026. While his position on the Fed board continues until 2028. So Powell could be the chair for 2 years of Trump's potential presidency and possibly on the board for the entirety of it. Trump also warned that the Fed should not cut interest rates before the November election, saying it's something that they know they shouldn't be doing. There's a lot of political implications to that, and I think Trump's onto something for sure. But regarding Powell's fate, I think this could be where Trump is kind of giving Powell a little bit of a way out to not have to act politically, because he's essentially saying, listen, Jerome, if you're doing a good job, I'm not going to fire you. Now, that's the caveat there. That's the question, is if Powell can do the right thing, if he does a good job. That seems to be the indicator of his job security. And it seems to me like perhaps maybe Powell even knows that he hasn't done a great job, and he knows that if he continues that, perhaps his job security is not there. Boy, there was a lot that we weren't able to get to today, folks. God willing, we'll have to save some of it for tomorrow. But boy, it was great to be here with you today. I hope that everything that we talked about made sense to you. Please consider becoming a partner today if you're interested in what we are doing here at the ministry and you want to join the fight to be biblically responsible with the money that God God has given you. God bless you all. Great to be here. Lord willing, we'll be back tomorrow for Rapid Fire Friday. Hopefully we'll see you then. Remember, it's all His. Let's be found good and faithful stewards with the money that God has given to us. God bless you all. We'll see you tomorrow.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.